So there's 11 days until Call of Duty Next, where Modern Warfare 2's multiplayer is going to be revealed to the world. Then there's only 12 days until the beta begins, where players can start getting their hands-on experience with Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer gameplay. So while we're so close, I wanted to put out a little bit of a things I want to see, or maybe wish list style video for Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer ahead of when everything will be confirmed or be denied. So while I'm sure some of these things here maybe won't happen, one can dream, right? But also, for the most part, I think some of these game-changing changes that I want to see aren't necessarily too much to ask, with some already having even been a part of other games since Modern Warfare 2019 in the franchise. So as we go along, drop your thoughts below. What would you like to see? Of course, this list of mine is nowhere near definitive, so feel free to chime in, drop your ideal changes to multiplayer for Modern Warfare 2. Anything you'd add or subtract to the list, whatever the case, drop your thoughts below. But if you enjoyed the video, you find it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on the video. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to stay up to date with all things Modern Warfare 2 as we gear up for Call of Duty Next and the multiplayer reveal, the beta to follow, and the launch of the game in just under 2 months' time. We're on the road to 500,000 subscribers, so if you'd like to stay on top of everything, I'd love to have you in the community. For now, though, let's take a look at Modern Warfare 2 and some changes I'm hopeful we can see implemented for this upcoming year of gameplay. Now, we're going to be breaking this down into two different levels here for this video: gameplay changes and content changes. So let's start out basic. Let's start with some gameplay changes. Number one on this list is one that, fundamentally speaking, I think it needs to be there. We've seen it the last 2 years, so fingers crossed it is actually there upon launch, but that being an FOV slider for console. Now, we've had FOV sliders, of course, on PC for the longest time, but on console, we've only seen it within Black Ops Cold War as well as Vanguard. I've said it for years, and I will continue to say it for as long as it takes for them to put it in. I always will be personally on that side of championing for an FOV slider on console. It is a genuine advantage that PC does have to be able to see so much more of your peripheral vision as opposed to the locked 80 FOV on console. As for why we haven't seen this in Warzone and Modern Warfare 2019 just yet, one of the reasons I remember hearing back in Modern Warfare 2019 at the beginning of this last 3-year cycle was that it would end up destabilizing the game in a sense, where you'd end up creating rendering issues where if you change the FOV on console, some of the hardware wouldn't be able to process it, so therefore you'd have to lessen the render distance, and that of course would create issues for the gameplay experience if somebody on, say, PC can see players further than what they could on console. Especially in the Warzone side of things, I mean, you have large-scale maps like that where long-range visibility is crucial. So as for how true that was, if that held up, I'm hoping that at least now at this point, we're past that point. I mean, we had Vanguard, a modified version of the Modern Warfare 2019 engine, have an FOV slider on console. Cold War had it, different engine, sure, but it's something that the last 2 years, you'd think that we'd be continuing on with those fundamental changes, not reverting back. So fingers crossed, but moving on, the next thing I want to see gameplay related is one you might not consider, but honestly, I thought was one of the best unsung changes that Vanguard brought to the table to the franchise. That being the fact that melees and launchers, you shouldn't have to max level those. Have those be max level 1 by default with camo challenges already available right out of the gate to do that. For me, I never really understood, and it was kind of validated now with seeing Vanguard and not having to rank these up, is why would you ever have to level weapons that don't have attachments? You're not really working towards something else for that weapon, so I mean, why wouldn't I just be able to do the camos and call it a day at that point? So fingers crossed that continues on. That was something that really helped out, I think, in the sanity factor for grinding Atomic. Granted, how long they were bugged, some of the challenges with those launchers and melees, yes, was absolutely still insanity inducing, but it was at least something that I didn't have to rank it up before getting to those challenges and putting myself through the pain of only getting melee kills, only getting launcher kills for an absurd amount of time. And talking about progression, that's one thing that I really do hope that Modern Warfare 2 has, is a reasonable weapon and leveling progression system. Ironically, when we consider some of the fundamentals in this video that were done better in Cold War or Vanguard in recent years as opposed to Modern Warfare 2019, I kind of feel like I remember finding the Modern Warfare 2019 weapon leveling to be the least tedious, even though they weren't uniform level caps and instead each weapon had different levels. But I also feel like the weapon XP breezed by way faster than Vanguard as well as Cold War. I, as someone whose job deals with the game and new content, I shouldn't have to dread leveling up weapons, and of course, by that extension, certainly the casual players should not have to deal with that as well. If it's annoyingly tedious to the diehards, that is just way too much, especially for casuals. So if you want to make something tedious, sure, go ahead, but do it in a rewarding manner by bringing back weapon prestige or something like that, and the ability to grind out multiple times, perhaps granting unique camo rewards per weapon whenever it's gold, like World War II did. That was a really cool feature and honestly made weapon prestiging kind of worth it, but it didn't take forever to rank up your weapons entirely. So fingers crossed we find that balance between reasonable weapon leveling and also making it worth it, I guess. But anyways, outside of that, let's talk about some Ninja and Dead Silence. Now, Dead Silence has apparently been found in the game files via Warzone Mobile. As for if it's a field upgrade or a perk, I don't think that there's been anything that really has pointed one way or the other definitively just yet. But of course, this probably ignites that same discussion we had back in Modern Warfare 2019. Dead Silence as a field upgrade rather than a perk. For that, I kind of understand why they did it, because the larger picture thing, Warzone, having Dead Silence as a perk would be a stupidly broken crutch perk, but having it as a field upgrade was something that, yes, was overabundant, sure, in terms of the pickup rate for the first year and a half to 2 years of Warzone, but it also wasn't something that was active 24/7. You had to tactically use that. So I understand where linking it to the base game was something that you kind of had to do at that point, but now with Warzone 2 being its own independent application, you can do that if you want. And if it is something that is still a field upgrade, at least have something like a ninja perk as well. Footsteps, especially with the improved directional audio and things like that they're already marketing and hyping up, we need counterplay, I think, to be able to stop people sitting in corners and just listening for footsteps. The one statement by Infinity Ward's one audio lead during that intel drop talking about this was they stated hunting players by footstep audio. So you don't want to make it something where you incentivize camping and only listening for things. So make Dead Silence a perk, or at the very least, if it's a field upgrade, offer Ninja as a perk as well. We saw Vanguard do it. It can be done. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is lappable streaks. And what I mean by this is that if you end up getting your streaks the full way through, but you continue on that kill streak, you should be able to earn those once again. We saw it, of course, with Black Ops Cold War, though the Cold War streak system is a system that I don't ever want to see return. It was like requisitions from World War II, just granting people streaks for essentially nothing. And especially with the cooldown system in place, those that actually earned the streaks, you couldn't utilize them, and you'd have to kind of hope that you were staying on that streak long enough until after that cooldown finished. But coming back to that Modern Warfare 2019 and Vanguard version of how it works, the streaks do not end up resetting. You don't have the ability to go past that max streak you have set and then come back to the lowest and work your way up once again. Now, having gone back and played a ton of Modern Warfare 2019 as of lately, this is something I'm reminded of how much I really want this, because I've choked so many nukes in Modern Warfare 2019 because I'll end up going on this massive tear, I'll pop my advanced UAV, I'll get to like 24, 25, 26 kills, and then in that time, somehow nobody else on my entire team will be able to grab a UAV or something like that. And so therefore, I'll end up dying from somebody that spawns randomly behind me in the back, or that it was somehow just creeping around the map, and I did not have any awareness of where they were, that if I was able to get another UAV, another advanced UAV, I definitely would have, and that nuke would have been secured. That's something that in the classic Call of Duty games was absolutely phenomenal, and was one of the best parts about sort of pub stomping, was the fact that you could just keep that going. Once you found your footing, you essentially had it for the entire game. Another streak related thing here is that I do hope that we have the ability for, if not at its base, setting it as score streaks, the option to select either kill streak or score streaks without the need of a perk, that is. Point Man was something that was added in with Modern Warfare 2019, and I think with Vanguard, if I'm not mistaken, but I mean, also you shouldn't have to sacrifice some of your fundamental gameplay to play the objective and be rewarded for it. Instead, set it like a strike package from Modern Warfare 3, or as of recently, kind of how you could toggle how you could between your kill streaks and specialist bonus. Instead, just make it like specialist bonus, kill streaks, or score streaks. But anyways, don't want to harp too much on that. The next thing I want to talk about, and one that I hope very much so for a rework, is some sort of change to the skill-based or engagement-based matchmaking. Now, rumors are that it is being reworked. How much of that rings true, we of course will not know until, at the very least, the beta, but maybe even not until the launch of the game. But the system as we know it now just, it doesn't work, man. There is no reward for doing well or getting better at the game when the entire basis of how matchmaking works is to give you good lobbies, then try to match with people similar skill, and then if you do poorly, give you good lobbies again and repeat. It's just kind of this like sort of fake sense of accomplishment, if you can even call it that, because if you're the better player, you're not going to be rewarded in lobbies as such, and then also you don't really have the ability to learn, make adjustments to your gameplay, and then see yourself thrive. That was the big thing like way back in the day. I started with World at War and Modern Warfare 2 as my first Call of Duties that I played on day one, but I was terrible back then. But I also wanted to get better. I learned, I practiced, I got good over the course of 5 years, and as a result, I ended up being able to be the top player in 90% of matches going forward in those games afterwards. And it's okay if you disagree, but I believe the best way to learn is just to be thrown into the thick of it. So, especially whenever you then take that and realizing that that matchmaking system will play around with some of your ping as well. Sacrificing your connection absolutely is the worst way to go about that if you ask me. But anyways, don't want to stay too much on that. Skill-based and engagement-based matchmaking, tone that down. I'm sure we can all agree on that. Finally, gameplay-related stuff. The time to kill, I want to see reevaluated. Modern Warfare 2019 was something that kind of incentivized camping in a lot of areas just because you didn't really have any reaction time. It was basically 2-3 bullets, no matter what weapon, and you were dead. So that time to gauge a gunfight, find where that enemy is shooting you from, and returning fire, that does not offer you any sort of time to outplay. Cold War offered a little bit here where you could end up getting shot first and still securing a kill. Vanguard, again, not really. I don't know if it's ever been broken down, if it's the same, if it's faster, if it's slower than Modern Warfare 2019. I feel like the TTK is a tad better in Vanguard, but that might be placebo. But regardless, I want to see some middle ground where you have the ability to outplay an opponent, but also maybe not quite to the point of like Black Ops 4, where that TTK was incredibly slow. That's probably one that's subjective, though. I'm sure there are plenty of people that will find ideal TTKs amongst different games by comparison. So point being, though, I just want a little bit more time here in which you have to be rewarded for your gun skill, not just necessarily twitching or sitting in a corner, waiting for someone to turn a corner, whatever the case. Moving along, though, we're going to wrap things up with a little bit in terms of content-related stuff, and this really doesn't necessarily deal with like DLC or anything like that. Obviously, I want to see a ton of maps, a ton of modes, a ton of weapons, a ton of DLC throughout the year, and of course all that other stuff at launch, but I'm more so talking about stuff that as a player that plays consistently, grinds out the game, I want something that will reward me a little bit here. One thing that I really thought was an awesome feature within Black Ops Cold War, but didn't ever really transfer over into Warzone, and as such, I would have loved to see this be the case. The Prestige Shop was a really cool and unsung addition, I think. Of course, having those Prestige keys was a way to end up getting things like calling cards, custom Prestige emblems, blueprints, and all that kind of stuff. So I think you could do that in Modern Warfare 2 here, but offering up that plus even more. Having the ability to customize your emblem would be really cool. Having the ability to get custom camos or unique camos only available in the Prestige Shop would be really cool. Custom blueprints after Master Prestige levels would be really cool. And actually, on that same vein, the next thing I wanted to mention was that of Master Prestige rewards. Obviously, I would very much so love to see the classic, original, traditional Prestige system return. Prestige is like 1 through 10, and then like level 1,000, 2,000 and up if they really want to keep people grinding out the entire year. But unfortunately, I don't know that I expect them to do that. Their, of course, big thing the last couple of years, and probably going forward still, is to keep players on the game as long as possible. That is the entire purpose of those seasonal resets, making you want to come back each season and grind out the game. Though, adversely, it could have the opposite effect, where if it gets reset every season, you might not have the incentive to grind out the game because you know that it's not going to be there in 2 months' time. You're not going to be level 1,000 in 2 months' time, 200, 400, whatever the case, it's just going to reset. But if they do bring back seasonal prestiges, that's something that I thought level 1000 was a good addition to keep the grind going, but really there's no actual point. What I really enjoyed about the lesser embarked of the grinds most recently, what comes to mind is the Skynet camo from the Titanium Trials event. 20 wins in a mode in 2 weeks, granted for a rare and lesser seen camo, but it was a tall task. 20 wins was a lot to do, but it was a great way to keep grinders on and playing the game, increasing that game time, really wanting you to actually set yourself towards a goal and unlocking something cool and rare. I promise you, myself and so many others would no-life the games year-round if every 200 levels or so we get a universal camo to use on all guns. Not just a blueprint or something, but something that like that, every couple of 100 levels or so, there was something that you really needed to work towards to get. I would absolutely be no-lifing the games. And finally, in terms of other additional stuff to grind out, I personally would love to see additional mastery camos. Your gold, diamond, Damascus, dark matter, whatever, those 3 tiers are normally there, and of course, those are a lot of fun to go for. However, I will say that whenever I'm done with those, I kind of feel like I have less to do in the game. That's the big reason, or one of the big reasons, why I haven't played Vanguard in a long time. I mean, that's also independent of the fact that we've had like 10 maps in the 10 months of post-launch support that we've seen so far. That's inexcusable, but that's a different story for a different day. The one thing that really just I didn't care to play Vanguard afterwards is after I finished Atomic, because I just didn't have anything else to do. There weren't missions, there weren't really anything that was really worthwhile to keep me on the game. But having more than gold, diamond, Damascus, dark matter, one thing that I really liked about Modern Warfare 2019 is they introduced Obsidian. The only thing that I didn't like about it was that they introduced it so late. It was 6 months into the game already, so you had only 6 months before the game was not going to be the main focus. If you do that from the very beginning, you offer up those large, massive grinds. You offer up those things like weapon prestiges and how World War II did it, where if you get gold, you get a different variation of gold or something like that, like a chrome tiger, chrome cheetah. Those kind of things are always awesome to see the above and beyond steps for grinding out the game, and I honestly think that that is probably the more organic way to keep people on your game as opposed to things like engagement-based matchmaking. So coming full circle almost, or maybe like a semicircle, semi-loop back to one of the other points there, but that is kind of where I'm at here at this. I really do hope that we see a lot of different gameplay changes and features added in, but also I hope there's a lot of things that keep players on the game just from the multiplayer perspective. I'm sure that things like Warzone 2, DMZ, and all that kind of stuff, if they are everything that we hope them to be, they'll probably keep players on as well, but from a sheer multiplayer perspective, I think that these are a great way to go. So that is my wish list here for Modern Warfare 2 and what we can see out of the Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer experience. So that's what we're going to call it. I'd love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of this? Anything that you would add to this list, subtract to it, whatever the case, drop your thoughts below. But if you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on the video. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing running all things Modern Warfare 2. We've got a lot upcoming. We'll be streaming at Call of Duty Next and having content all throughout that beta week to follow. So make sure you stick it here on the channel to stay up to date with all of it. That said, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.